Okay, we were last talking about sesamoid bones, and these are irregular, usually small bones that are kind of small, somewhat flat. Sometimes they're very round, and they're found in our knees. The patella is actually a large sesamoid bone, but also in our feet and in our hands, and they basically function to increase the leverage ability of some of these joints. The only one you need to know for sesamoid bones is the patella. Here are figure 511, just to give you a little example. Long bone, the humerus, upper arm, some of the flat bones in the skull, like the parietal bone, sutural bones also in the skull, nice irregular bone, the vertebra, short bones like the ones in our wrists, which are called the carpals. There's 8 of them. And then bone markings are important bone features, markings that we will cover as we go into the skeletal system, the appendicular and axial skeletons, as we look at the individual bones. Some bones have particular bone markings. Other bones are maybe a little more boring in a way. But bone markings are important to indicate passage of blood vessels and or nerves, attachments for tendons and ligaments, or articulations where bones interact with other bones. So a process is a portion of a bone that kind of juts out. A ramus is like a large process, like a mandible, the part that juts up and articulates with the skull. A trochanter is a large round projection. A tuberosity is a smaller projection. The font here is pretty small on our figure 512, but definitely spend time on figure 512 learning some of these bone markings. And as we get into the axial and appendicular skeleton, certain bones will have to know some of these particular bone markings. A crest is like your iliac crest on your hips. A spine is a crest-like protrusion. The most common one is on your scapula, your shoulder blade. A fossa is a shallow depression. A sulcus is a shallower depression on a bone. Here we zoomed in a little more. The head of a bone would be an articulating surface like on your femur. The neck is this constriction just beyond the head. A condyle is a fairly large articulating surface, like there's 2 condyles here at the distal end of the femur that articulates with the tibia, your thigh bone, which also has 2 condyles. Excuse me. Trochlea is like a depression, a groove that we'll see in some bones. A facet is yet another depression, usually for an articulating surface. A foramen is like an opening or a canal. A fissure is like a slit-like groove or canal, like what you see back here in the orbits of the skull. A meatus or a canal is a passageway through a bone, similar to a foramen. And a sinus or an antrum is a cavity of space in a bone. As you can see here, this dark area is a space, a cavity, a sinus within this bone, which is your frontal bone, and so forth. So spend some time on figure 512 reviewing and learning these bone markings. And it's a good figure because it shows you representative bones that have these particular bone markings. And that's it for chapter 5.